What's going on, everyone? It's Michael here from Stormex. I'm joined with Eduardo Finegra and Justin Smith from Contractor Plus. Justin, if you want to jump on, give yourself a little introduction, a little bit about Contractor Plus.
Yeah, Justin with Contractor Plus. Contractor Plus is kind of serving at the intersection of field service management and construction management. Really focused on improving the daily operations of contractors and everyone they do business with.
Okay, cool. And can you kind of tell us a little bit about the stage you're currently in and some of the goals that you're looking for?
Yeah, so so the stage, I guess it's kind of subjective, you know. I
Mhm.
would call it pre-seed, but you know, if you're basing it off of like the financial metric, I
Uh-huh.
guess would be at seed stage.
Okay.
We are raising primarily from angels and high net worth individuals, Reg CF as well. So still very early. However, if you look at revenues, definitely a seed stage.
Mhm. Just like, and we'll get to this later, but your current fundraising efforts, like most people when they're in that pre-seed stage, it's just brutal, and you seem to be kind of just coasting through it. And so we'll get that later. I mean,
I
obviously
don't know
on
about-
you're like, obviously on your end, you're like, what are you talking about? Like this is terrible. But that's like compared to a lot of founders, you seem to really have a really great grip on things. And just talking to you in our previous calls, like you're definitely very into systemizing and just being efficient and smart with the work you do. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in fundraising and just all the things that you've tried in the past that have worked well for you and what hasn't worked for you?
Yeah. So what haven't we tried in the past? From the outside looking in, I guess we're making it look easy right now. There is a lot involved in raising capital, and I think part of the reason why it may look so easy is because this isn't the first time we've raised money.
Hmm.
And when you are, especially for a first time founder, you never raised money before, you don't have an extensive network to tap into, you don't really know what you're doing. There's a lot of unknowns. It's hard to ask for money. And especially if you don't know your own unit economics, you don't know your numbers, you don't, the more you know about your business and the more confident you are, and also the more traction you've gained in your business, is going to be the easier it is to raise capital. It's the more confidence you have in your business, and
Hmm.
confidence is ultimately what does the selling. Um, so when you talk to prospective investors, you hop on a call. I think that first and foremost, just know they're people just like you, and they ultimately are looking for some indication of confidence. It's all about risk and
Hmm.
risk versus reward. And as an investor, I'm not going to place my money somewhere where I believe the risk outweighs the reward. Uh,
Yeah.
So that's kind of that. Now, strategies, and there's a lot that you can do when reaching out to investors. There's also a lot that you can't do. That the Securities Exchange Commission is pretty specific on how you can solicit, um, or not solicit, rather. Uh, so you have to be very careful with your messaging and how you word things and what you say. And it's always really important to remain in compliance. I think that's one of like the main benefits of working with someone like StormX. Um, you're not going to understand all that stuff first time around. It's a lot to take in. So getting the messaging right while, balancing that with remaining in compliance is a big deal. You don't want to end up in trouble with the SEC.
Hmm.
You definitely don't
100%.
want that. So,
Yeah.
what works? Well, so I would say cold outreach works, cold email works. But here's the thing, like you have to know how to do it. And you have to know how to do it well. And you have to know what to say, who to say it to, when to say it to them. You have to really understand the human psychology behind why people react to things. Why do they open it? Why do they care? And getting that messaging right is so critical. And a lot of times you're not going to get it right the first time. And I think where a lot of founders go wrong is they queue up this big campaign, they buy some investor list or find one for free that someone's giving away on LinkedIn or whatever, and queue up a campaign and just blast away.
Hmm.
And then they get like a 0.1% response rate. And they're like, well, this doesn't work. So they give up on it.
Yeah.
Well, the difference in just a few words can be the difference in a 0.1 and a 1% or 2% response rate. even a 5% response. I mean, we're seeing a ridiculous response rate right now just from the outreach that you guys are doing.
And we've only sent it to 300 people,
Yeah, exactly.
which is
Just
like,
closed a $50,000 investment today.
oh, damn. That's news to me. Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Cool.
for sure. It's
Cool.
gaining traction. But again, and also the first checks are the hardest. So if you haven't taken any money yet, like no one has cut you that check. If you're raising from VCs, you're going to need an institutional lead. Someone's going to, there are specific
Mhm.
VCs that prefer to lead rounds. You're going to have to find one of those, and
Yeah.
you're going to have to go through due diligence. You're going to have to cross all the T's and dot all the I's, and your data room's going to have to be really well put together. And if it's not, the lead will typically invest the extra time and effort in helping you get those assets together. That's part of what a lead does. They'll also work with you on your valuation, and they'll work with you on the terms. And it's a very extensive and time consuming process working with
Yeah.
your lead investor.
Yeah. It's definitely like one of the biggest responses we see from VCs is, this looks amazing. Who's already invested? Who has anyone invested yet? It's always, most VCs don't really want to take that first investment and give you that money. And one thing I really like you said too is like, again, the most common mistake too is they say, yes, we, sorry, just like all over the place for a second.
That happens.
They're like, a lot of founders are like, yeah, we've tried the cold outreach, we've tried sending cold emails, we had a list of 5,000 investors. Okay, one, how tailored was that list? Were they just people with angel investor in their LinkedIn bio? And two,
I think my LinkedIn bio did say that. I think everybody
You,
says that.
yeah, everyone says it.
you know what's crazy? Oh, Michael, I'm so sorry. I have to bring this up before I forget. Just recently, somebody that runs an oat milk company reached out to me, and it was very like so pitchy in a message on LinkedIn. And then I was like, who's doing this for you? Like, I don't where do you think that I'm like in the oat milk business? Like it was so out of the ordinary.
Why would
I
I
was
have
so
any interest in
confused.
investing in oat milk?
It looked delicious, don't get me wrong. But when I saw it, I was like, this is not what I do, man. So I thought it was just crazy that due diligence sometimes just falls in the cracks sometimes when people reach out to different investors. So
The funny
Laziness.
thing too is I feel like if you're an investor and you really want to invest in, let's say, AI that does, pet companions, like an AI pet companion, and you really want those companies, you just put that in your bio. Just say AI pet companion investor, and you'll have every single AI campaign or pet investor, pet startup, emailing you. And so I feel like for investors, it's like, yeah, if you are looking for a company to invest in, put it in your bio.
So true. I'm guessing that's a strategy you guys use at StormX.
No, I just thought of it. I'm like, damn, that's a pretty,
I mean, I can imagine it working. You think about it, like these guys, we've got a lot going on. I hate calling it laziness, but that's what it is. When you're doing prospecting, you're building a list of investors. Dude, that's the most time consuming process of the whole thing. It takes a long time building a really hand curated list.
Yeah.
But what's the point of just like loading up 10,000 angel investors and just spraying and praying? Your deliverability is going to suck. Your response rate is going to be horrible. Most people are going to mark it as spam. And then before you know it, all of your emails are landing in everyone's junk folder.
And you can't truly know if your emails are good or not because your campaign is only as good as the quality of the contacts, the quality of the leads. So in terms of your fundraising, you're tackling a lot within your company. How much time do you spend on fundraising?
Oh, that's a good question. I was just asked that question today. I would say 30, right now, 35%.
35%. Okay. And
an 80-hour work week, give or take.
okay. And before
so for most, it might be like 70%.
Damn, 80-hour work week. I'm like, holy crap, that's
it's a go.
That's a lot. Before we even met or talked, you had your own systems in place. Can you talk a little bit about the DIY fundraising space and how you, before StormX, were making it as efficient as possible for yourself and some of the things that you did to implement?
Well, first thing I'll say is when I started working with StormX, one of the key motivating factors for me was the cost. because I was already spending on some of the stuff I was doing myself. Not only was I investing my own time in managing these things, but for example, I was using 2 licenses of LinkDelf. That's $250 a month per license. So that's $500 right there.
Wow.
Instantly gone.
Yeah.
Now we were getting like, what I love about what StormX does, and not everyone who does investor outreach does this, but what StormX does is you reach out on LinkedIn and then follow up with an email. There's that, like the 7 touch points. The more exposure you can get from different angles to your target audience is the more they're going to trust you. Your believability increases. The likeliness they're going to respond and entertain your proposition is going to significantly increase. So I was doing the same thing, reaching out on LinkedIn, reaching out using tools like Instantly. And our team, we do a lot of cold outreach, even for customer acquisition. We build our own proprietary and like lead enrichment and personalization stuff. Most people aren't going to be able to do all that. And if you aren't able to personalize your outreach, you're not going to be able to expect a very good response rate.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of value. I would say the whole, I was probably spending 10 hours a week just managing all of that stuff. And plus the process is kind of broken, right? Because half of it's in one piece of software, half of it's in another. And one big thing that StormX is doing, everything's inclusive in one platform and it's hands off. Once it's set, it's pretty much set it and forget it.
Cool. Yeah. Well, we appreciate the shout out there. Yeah, the multi-channel is definitely like something that we noticed, and it makes it seem like you're a real person. A lot of outreach is just like, even if it is personalized, you're like, oh, another person personalizing. But when you get that LinkedIn message saying, hey, I sent you an email, it's like, oh shoot, this is a real person who's trying to get my attention. And so that's something that we really enjoy about the platform.
Well, and not to interrupt, but also, like, it's not just anyone that's getting this, right? So it's someone who is either in prop tech or in construction tech, or like they have an interest or they've demonstrated an interest in what we're doing, at least to some degree. Maybe not like 100%, but they're at least aware of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So you're already like within their sphere of influence, like they're interested already.
And so you also, as all the people who work with StormX do, you met with Dylan, our copywriter. Can you talk a little bit about the copywriting experience and the scripts and how they differ from, what most people would send?
Well, that's the thing. Your copywriters, I mean, they're professionals. They know like Dylan knows what she's doing. She's as good as it gets. Most people aren't thinking about the psychology behind what's going to get this person interested. They're just saying, okay, I know like what we're doing and why we need money and whatever. So that's what they make their pitch about. And that first email that goes out is usually trash because it's just all like sell. You don't even know them yet. Like, they don't even know you.
Like a brief of your company.
It's like walking up to someone on the street and asking them for $50,000.
Except in this case, it's 2 million for 2%.
Oh, that's crazy. And people expect to get results out of that. You're not going to get results out of that. The only thing that gets look, the outreach does one thing. It gets you some face time with the right people. If your outreach is good, you'll get face time with the right people. And then it's on you. It's all about the vibe. Do you resonate with that person? Do you see eye to eye? Do you share the same vision? Do you vibe? I mean, you'll feel it. If it's there, it's there. And if it's not, it's not.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing too is sometimes I hop on calls and, trying to explain StormX is difficult because there's so many different ways you can kind of angle it. It's like, well, the whole system doesn't work if we don't have the right data, and then also the multi-channel, and then also the scripts, and then all these different things. And it's so hard to really show it. But then they're like, okay, well, what if you want to work on a success fee, things like that? And I'm like, listen, StormX, if you want to put aside the fundraising, put aside any of your goals, the main focus we have is getting you in the door with this person, in a way that's going to have them say, hey, send over your pitch deck. Hey, like instead of the normal, like get out of my inbox, it's people actually, and I haven't looked too much at your responses, but I'm sure people have said, hey, yeah, send over your pitch deck, hey, yeah, I'll take a look. And it's just the script.
Not just any people though. Like
yeah,
the people on your list are like, I'm not going to say who they are, but they're people that everyone knows.
Yeah.
Say their name. I don't care who it is. Like call one of your random cousins or something and say this person's name. They're going to know who they are.
No, it's funny. Sometimes even Eddie the other day, our data team is just like they really put in the work. And Eddie saw one of the data. He's like, what is the CEO of Zoom doing in in our thing? And our data research is like, well, he invested in this, this, and this, and this, and these align with, and we're like, damn, yeah.
What better
I
investor
was
than another founder?
Yeah.
I
Or
was so
CEO?
close into going into a full like tangent because I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And then after, when they were like exactly what Michael said, they were like, this is what he has done previously in the retail tech space. And once I saw it closely, I was like, oh, music in my ears. I had no idea. I was like, all right, they know more than I do.
Yeah, it's you know, it's crazy. You can really get lost. You could probably get lost for weeks building a list, like just going down that rabbit hole. It is so time consuming getting it right because all of the lead prospecting tools out there, all of the enrichment tools, like some, even with the ones with the best intent data, like you can only drill down so far. And in that list view, you're really not going to be able to see what you need to know to determine whether or not that person belongs on your list. You have to manually click on it. And now there's some things you can do with automation, but to get pretty close, but you really have to invest the time there. And you guys have definitely done that.
Cool. Thank you. And, one of the big things too is just you as a founder, you as an entrepreneur, like you have a very holistic view, I can tell, of everything that's going on. And so part of this video too, we want to be able to provide value and advice for the current founders who are looking to raise capital. And so I'll kind of leave this as an open-ended question. What are some of the key things that these founders need to make sure they're doing, make sure they're not doing, to really optimize their fundraising?
Know what you're asking for and why. Clearly, if you're starting a business, you need money, of course, but most businesses fail. And the less you know about your numbers and the less confidence you have in what you're doing, and the earlier you are, is the more likely it is that you're going to fail. Let's just be real. And if you have something that's gaining traction and you see that there's, you've done the market research, you know who you're selling to, you know why you're doing what you're doing, you know why your pricing is where it is, like everything you do has to be intentional as a founder. You can't, there's no margin for error. One wrong move and it could literally cost you the entire business. And definitely don't go looking for outside capital until you figured all that out. Because now you're not making these mistakes with your own money. You're making it with investors' money. I would say that's the number one thing, is just really know the business you're in. And really, it needs to mean something to you. You need to be serious about it. I mean, you really have to be all in on it.
Cool. Definitely a big one. Know your why and know what you're looking for.
That's Simon Hayek, right?
Simon Sinek.
Simon
Sinek, yeah. Damn, I can't believe I actually the
whole
Simon
premise
Sinek,
of that is like lead with your why. I read that book. It was, I played with the pitch a lot, and I remember going through the pitch deck and rearranging some slides. When I first started meeting investors on the first call, I would have my pitch deck open. I'm thinking back 3 years now, and I'd have my pitch deck open and I would be ready to pitch them, and they would let me, I would go through it. But every check I've closed, I've never went through my pitch deck.
No.
That your pitch deck is something you attach to an email. Like when you connect with them, just have a conversation.
Yeah. It's funny. It's one of the funny things too, is sometimes we hop on calls that we think are sales calls for StormX. And I'm like, so yeah, tell us a little bit about your company. They pull up their whole pitch deck and they're pitching to us and going through. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to give it to them and let them continue because they look really passionate about what they're saying. But then I'm like, I have to say, well, for $500 a month, we could do that exact same thing to other people.
Dude, do not raise my price after I say this, but $500 a month is ridiculous.
Well, we just raised it to $650.
Don't raise mine.
No, not yours.
But yeah, I mean, it's so even 600 is such a bargain. There's companies charging 20 grand. They're saying, we guarantee you'll get 25 meetings. You pay us 20. Okay. That's okay. But it might take 6 months to do that.
Yeah.
Your service is, well, now it's 6,000 is what, $3,000. So $3,600.
And just one thing to include on that, because for my profession, I've come from banking. I've worked in different firms at the time, and seeing how corrupted the space was, and even from the previous firm that I was at the time, a long time ago, where they would charge $5,000 for something that is so risky. And I was on the back end that was just like so concerned. I'm like, this guy that's coming in, that's looking for investors, doesn't even have an MVP. There's nothing that's in place, but the sales rep are like really hyping it up, where I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. And of course, when they go full speed ahead, what happens after the 90 days? The person gets upset and they start demanding a refund. And everybody has their different policy on how they work with different individuals, but they never, you know, a lot of the times there's no guarantee in place, which I was like, oh my God. As a founder myself that has raised capital before, and seeing this is one of the most heartbreaking things you'd ever see. It's crazy.
There's a lot of
So,
snakes that are
mhm,
making their money off of founders who barely have any money, and they're
it's
not
crazy.
delivering on their promise.
The crazy thing is, so when Eddie and I came together, like my background is in digital marketing and business development. I have no idea I had no interest in fundraising, nothing like that. And we're starting this investor marketing agency. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And as we're going along, in my head, I'm thinking, I'm like, damn, we're charging $3,000 and we're having such a hard time closing sales. And I'm like, yeah, because these people are scared of their money. They don't have the money to spend on something so risky. And we're supposed to prove that we're experts and charge them $3,000 for, you know, a company who might not even have an MVP. And so over time, it was like, you know what, this is like, we kind of had to shut down operations for, you know, like 4 months while we were trying to figure out, okay, how can we make it so it's a system that actually works, provides value, and is built for people who don't have the money and the time to risk.
Still going to get the $3,000 out of them, but so
Yeah.
they might even be paying a little bit more than that over time. But the
Yeah.
thing is, you've also built a great relationship. You've delivered value. By the time they've spent $3,000, they've already seen what you're made of. So they have no problem continuing to pay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a crazy space to see, like, you know, even nowadays, like we see new investor marketing agencies popping up all the time, and it's still that same business model of, hey, you know, pay us $3-5 grand. We'll get a list of 50,000 people that say they're angel investors, and we'll email blast them for you. And
it's crazy because a lot of the times it's like being managed through instantly too. So like seeing the seeing their process by connecting multiple email domains at the same time and then email blasting to thousands of investors simultaneously. That to me is so wild. That's so crazy.
Yes, you know, I've done everything from like for the Reg CF audience. I've scraped investor lists. I've enriched it 1,000 different ways. Well, not 1,000, but I've found out how to get people's mailing addresses, and wrote a Python script,
door-to-door sales,
APIs to get handwritten letters. But you have to be careful what you say. Like, you have to put a disclaimer at the bottom, like look up or use GPT to ask, like, what disclaimers do I need to include on this? Or send it to your copy. You can literally paste all of your copy to GPT and say, hey, can you just make sure that this is SEC compliant? And tell me what I need to add to it. It'll tell you. Like, we're in the age now where, man, GPT can save you tens of thousands of dollars a year in legal fees.
Yeah.
So
I asked my attorney, I'm like, can I just do this on ChatGPT?
No, of course not.
He's like, absolutely not. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm still gonna.
They need to make like lawyer.ai, law.ai. That would be great. AI legal service.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the funny things too is just thinking about all the people right now who are just like writing down every single AI possibility company that they could start, and then yeah, I mean, some calls I don't even want to get on because it's just like a bunch of platforms built on GPT that I'm like,
yeah, but a lot of those platforms are raising money very easily.
They're doing a great job.
Everyone, because from the outside looking in, you read one book on generative AI and you're like, okay, this is cool, large language models. And then as an investor, you're like, I'm going to be really bullish on AI. So, but you don't really understand AI. Like, you have a surface level understanding of it. So surface level understanding compared with combined with a surface level integration, match made in heaven. But there's actually a lot to it if you're going to build your own model, and all the backend APIs that you have to create to facilitate how things communicate and connect. There is a lot to it to do it right.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So other things, man. So I will say, like, what does not work? Clearly the spray and pray. If you're going to build your own investor list, do it with intent and be willing to block off the time it's going to take to do it right. And mind you, you're going to have tools like Zoom Info or Rocket Reach, and I spent like $3,000 in Rocket Reach credits over the last year. It's not cheap. So, or you can partner with an agency who does this full time for a living, and because that's all they do. Like, you're getting someone who really understands, or not just getting someone, you're getting a team that really understands what you're trying to accomplish. They learn about your business. They help you with the copy. They take all that time that you would spend on list curation and sequencing and everything that you can imagine, and they just take that off your plate. So then you can spend more time, actually connecting and building relationships. Though I would say the single best piece of advice is, don't expect just to get on a call with an investor, even if they're interested. Don't expect to get on a call with an investor and have a $50,000 check wired to your account a couple of days later. That's not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you don't have an MVP, I'm not saying you can't raise money, but this isn't 2020. 4 years ago, you probably could have done it, especially if you know the right people. Today, I would say if you don't have an MVP, you don't have any revenue or like serious traction, you're definitely not raising from VCs. If you talk to the right people, maybe with a personal introduction, if you can get an introduction to the right people, someone who actually has credibility and clout with someone, they're believable, then maybe you can raise. Or if you have a wealthy family member or a friend or whatever, it becomes a lot easier for you.
Yeah.
But then it goes back to like, my grandfather has done really well. He's worth like 15 million, but he's not going to invest in my business. I won't even bother asking him because he doesn't understand. He's old school, does everything on a paper ledger. Just not.
And even then, sometimes you just, or I guess most of the time, you don't want someone who's just going to throw you money, and then now you have someone sitting on the sidelines like, hey, I gave you 2 million, and has no idea what you're doing or how to.
Exactly. They don't understand. Exactly. You want to take don't be afraid. Don't be so hungry to take that check that you'll take money from anyone, because there's millions of millionaires, and it's just a matter of time. You will get, if you're taking the right steps, you're going to get meetings with the right people. No question. That's not an if. It's just a matter of when.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's just a numbers game. Take those meetings, focus on the relationship. Don't try to sell yourself. Just talk about the facts and build rapport. 2 or 3 calls later, you may be talking a term sheet.
Cool. Yeah. And even like I like what you said about, just starting a conversation and being face to face with them too. Like, being able to see certain responses from founders, it kind of looks like they think that investors are just always looking for the best deal. And so the conversation starts like, hey, thanks for responding. So this, and this, and this is what we're doing, and here's how we're doing it. Instead of like, hey, like, I'd love to, actually sit down and hear a little bit about you hear a little bit about me, actually engage in conversation. Obviously knowing there's like motive, but still it's a conversation, it's a relationship.
Well, how about this? Your interaction with those investors who cut you checks doesn't stop the second they strike their pen on that piece of paper. That's really where it just starts. They've expressed, they have a vow of confidence. They've expressed that they're confident in what you're doing, mostly in you as an individual. People don't invest in businesses, they invest in people. Businesses are just a composition of its people, and businesses are only ever going to be as great as the sum of its people. You can never be greater than the sum of your people. So investors are only interested in investing in people. Do I believe this dude has what it takes to build the right team that can actually pull this crazy idea off? Because building a unicorn, I don't care what industry you're in, to actually pull that off, you got to be crazy. And you've got to be a machine, and you've got to be able to get the right people and the right processes and the right systems in place. And if you're not willing or able to do that, you're going to be able to, I see it from an investor's lens. It would be very easy to identify if someone had what it takes or not. I think it would be pretty easy to spot. You can just feel like, is this person crazy enough or not? Because you really do have to be kind of crazy to shoot for that.
And you're a great example of that too. Like, I'm serious. Like, getting off a call, like even like the gossip at StormX2 is like, Justin's gonna get it. Justin's gonna get it. Like, because that's just how you are. You can tell, like, in our conversation that you have conviction. You're like, you might not know how it's going to get done, but you're like, there's a way, there's a way, and we're going to do it, and we're going to spend, an 80-hour work week, and we're going to get it done,
And I'm willing to not take the fast money. An introduction that we actually got the meeting from your outreach, and I won't say who they are. It was a VC. It's like, I know that we agreed that high net worth individuals and angels were our primary focus. Early stage VCs, though, like maybe if it's a fit, it could work. Some ended up on the list, and it's bound to happen. So, plus some investors that work at VCs also do angel investing. Anyhow, ended up on a call with the managing partner of a really awesome fund, and the call went like 2 or 3 times longer than what was scheduled, and neither of us had a hard stop, and the vibe was definitely there. And it wasn't the easiest call. I mean, definitely got checked a couple times and handled it. I mean, you want to put people under a stress test, right? And poke the bear and see how they respond. But the call ended on a very positive note, wanting to enter due diligence. However, there were a couple preferences from this fund that made it not a perfect fit. It was a fit that we could have made work if we were willing to, but little preferences, like some investors, especially funds, are going to have a preference of on location work. Is your team fully remote, or are you on location? That was one of the situations here where we're fully remote right now, and it's working for us. So if it's I'm a big believer, if it's not broken, don't fix it. You have better to spend your time and energy on. I see the benefit of, and I personally love working in person with a team, but ultimately, if you want to keep your people happy and you want to incentivize really like top tier talent to stay put working, like they're not going to go anywhere, you don't have any attrition or turnover, then you have to give them a work environment that they're really happy with. Like no one else is going to give them. We're competing with people like Meta and Google, Alphabet, for engineering talent, and we have to catch these people, these talented individuals, right at the right moment, and give them an offer that outweighs what Meta or Alphabet can give them in other ways. We can't beat them on cash comp. I don't think anybody. So, but we can beat them on work-life balance. We can beat them on like unlimited time off. There's just things you can do where it's really just about the mission. And as long as we're getting everything done and we're meeting our goals in every sprint and things are happening the way they're supposed to be, live your life, man. Enjoy your life, because you've only got one life.
No, I love that you said that. It's really like, especially with remote work, it's like people start to realize that, damn, there are those weeks where it's like 40, 80 hours. But at the end of the day, if my work's done, then I can sit and enjoy, and be still for a moment. So
and not everyone on your team is gonna, I don't expect other people to work as much as I do. That would be wrong of me. I can't do that. I punish myself sometimes, but
like it's Christmas Eve. Get back to work.
But some people are going to work harder than others. We have one. We just implemented employee of the month, and then
cool.
we do like a weekly end cap with our whole team, and we bring them all on Zoom, and we go around and talk about highlights, lowlights, what's going on in our personal lives, how we're feeling. We bring CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, some elements. Read a couple books on psychology, and got really interested in how we can format our weekly end caps to help people connect with one another on a human level. Because above business, and we're not a B Corp, but what I'm about to say makes it sound like one, but they're above business. There's a human element, and I believe in putting people over profits. We have a human responsibility to one another that comes before everything else.
Yeah, no, 100%. And even that is a challenge that we're really trying to tackle and be smart about is, making the community, even though we're all over the place, our business community, human, feel human, because I know I'm guilty of this, being like, all right, see y'all. and like just vanish for like 48 hours and then get on the team. And then I'm like, so guys, what's up? What's up, everyone? They're like, oh, we're good, we're good. And I'm like, damn, like, there needs to be that community aspect, even though we're remote. It's still you
It
still have
does,
to
but you
do it.
also, you just said something that was so important, and it's something I noticed about your company. StormX is so systemized, but in a way that, like, from the first call you're going to have with StormX all the way through the point where you're getting your copy written and the list is getting approved and the campaign executes, it's very hands-on. So you do have the system in place and everyone follows that to a T, but there's still that human interaction, that one-on-one. And there's really no replacement for that. But what you said that really stood out to me was you disappear for a couple of days and you come back and everything's fine. Most business owners can't do that. They can't say that. And that is really what we need to be striving for in a business, is to get the business to a point where you can close the lid to your laptop and disappear for a week and come back and you don't have a bunch of fires to put out.
I think people are so afraid of just even little fires that they won't let them happen, and that's when a founder or CEO gets stuck in this loop. And it's like, I forgot where I heard it or what I read, but one thing that really changed the game for me was when I heard just leave for a few days and see what breaks. It's like, it's not going to be the end of the world. Just see what breaks.
Yeah.
And when you see what breaks, you're like, oh, okay, that's what I need to go for. And then another, like 2 weeks later, leave, vanish, see what breaks. Okay, that's what needs to be fixed right there. And it works. It works really well. And it's what I tell, like I do a lot of consulting too. It's what I tell a lot of other founders. I'm like, you have all these problems right now. You're struggling to keep up. That, like, it might sound counterintuitive, but walk away for a second.
You think of it like this: if, like, when we learn how to ride a bicycle as a kid, we start with training wheels. And our mom or dad like holds the handle for us, and we learn how to pedal with training wheels, and like we finally get our balance, and and eventually the training wheels come off and then we can ride the bike on our own. But without those training wheels, we'd never be able to do that. However, if you leave the training wheels on, you'll never be able to ride a bike.
Yeah.
At some point they have to come off. At some point you have to crash. And I think as a founder, in any leadership position in a business, it's like, if you maintain control of it, everything will be fine. So you don't want to let go of that control. Yeah. But for your own sanity, you have to. And also for the health of the business, you have to be willing to let people fail, because that's where they learn. And also, you will never be able to exit your business if your business can't survive without you.
Yeah, 100%. That's a huge, huge, huge thing. And I think ultimately the reason why most startups, like, if I could sum it up, it's, people who want to start businesses, they don't know the single thing that they're actually looking for is the ability to just rest, is to rest and enjoy life. And they forget that goal. They forget that the goal is rest. It's not 10,000 a month. It's not 100,000 a month. It's to be able to just rest.
Yeah, and joy, man. Experience joy. Like,
yeah,
we all want to be really happy, right? I think like happiness and fulfillment and success and all of those things, like, one, it's a lifestyle, but two, that's really the objective. It's just being able to maintain that live a positive life at the end of this road. Like, one thing for sure is our time here is limited, and all of this work is, it has to amount to something, and it gives us purpose. But at the end of the day, like, does it bring us joy? And if it's a creator of joy for you and the people, your users and your customers and your team and your investors, and everyone wins from it, man, a good thing is a good thing. And the money's out there. You will have no problem raising money if you're doing a good thing.
Well, cool. Well, we went from fundraising to business development to some deep ass shit. So Justin, for real, we really appreciate your time here. Super grateful to have you on the platform, and be able to see the growth of Contractor Plus, and to have someone, of your standards and of your expertise to be able to kind of give us feedback and, be here to just have this conversation too. So I want to thank you. I'm super grateful for you. And, if before we jump off, if there are any fun updates that you want to give about Contractor Plus.
We're approaching $400,000 raised. We have raised officially like $300K on WeFunder. A lot of those are from angels, direct outreach. Some are off platform checks. So, we take off platform checks. We typically raise like 20K or more. Direct or through the WeFunder SPV, we'll raise the minimum's $100. So we do that just to enable our users to invest, which has worked really well. A lot of our users have. Company's growing really fast. Since we started the raise on March 1st, we've only been raising for a couple months. We raised almost 400K. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so our monthly recurring revenue has grown by 35% so far this year. And we haven't even increased our, we haven't even been able to deploy funds from the raise.
Yeah.
Accelerate.
Wow. Okay.
So it's, when you have your numbers figured out and it makes sense to raise money, really know what you're raising it for though. Right. But when you get there and you know what you're raising it for, and you know that if I spend $100,000 here, I'm going to be able to print $400,000. Well, then it makes sense to do it. To have that stuff figured out before you start everything. And I would say just don't try to do it yourself ever. I've done it myself, but man, one person can only do so much. It takes a team, and it takes the right people. We definitely have that. And I think our success so far is largely attributed to that. It's probably not attributed to any one thing specifically, but having the right people doing the outreach, having a concerted effort with people like StormX and of course our own team, pretty great team, has gotten these results. So all results, all success.
Oh yeah. Well, Justin or Eddie, you're muted, by the way.
No, I just want to say, Justin, I really appreciate your time for doing this, man. Seriously. And happy, that we're here as a support to you. And, as I always say this to all founders, we're going to be here by your side, man. So you let us know what you need from us and we'll get there. Yeah,
I appreciate it. You guys have been the best. I've worked with other companies. Actually, I'll say one right now, Marquee Equity. Don't work with those guys. So, and they're not in the US, so they can charge a commission. So, and just avoid, if you're a startup founder listening to this and you're on the fence, what do I do? Definitely don't work with someone who's trying to charge you a very large sum up front and a fee on the back. Honestly, I was skeptical when we first met, only because the price was so low. And it's that whole perceived value. And I was just how can they do all this? Because the software license is just to do the LinkedIn outreach is $500. We had 2 accounts going at once, but still, how can you afford to do it at that price? You've got people to pay, you've got systems to pay for, you've got, so you guys are clearly doing everything right and running super lean to be able to, and you're just fair, you're just good dudes. And that means a lot, man. You want to do good business, you got to do business with good people.
100%. Yeah. And yeah, appreciate it. Well, Justin,
I'll say this one last thing. So if you raise money and you're not allowed legally to pay a success fee, you can pay gratuity.
Yeah, we have a tip jar. I got to put it out.
The tip jar needs to be on a drip sequence. Every time you see a check come through.
How are we doing this month? 10%, 20%, 50%.
It's got to be under the table so the SEC won't catch us. So.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's super funny.
Awesome.
Yeah, likewise, Justin. Thank you so much for doing this again. I really appreciate this.
For sure. Anytime.